The emergence of the seraphims and the cherubims. I have a desire to go on now to the story of the next two orders of spirits to emerge. Quite some time went by in which the already emerged spirits were getting to know one another. They were having fun discovering how they could merge together and re-emerge, getting to know one another by becoming one. They were reaching an ecstasy that gave them explosions of light from time to time also. They felt that the mother was wrong, and that they did not need more will presence to have orgasm. The mother also had fear that she had not been right. She hesitated to think that she had intuited it wrong, but now it looked like she had. There was nothing she could do but wait and see how it went. Experience would show whether she was right or not. The spirits had the feeling that they had the power to increase their own light. I felt like a god that was standing over them, trying to remind them of my contribution. The spirits needed more experience before I could tell them anything more. The mother and I felt it was time to continue our journey outward to the stars. The Father of Manifestation had a desire to go with us, but Heart was not as interested as he had been before. He felt like his balance would help the already emerged spirits to maintain while we were gone. The mother had a desire for him to go along with us, but she could not persuade him. He was not wrong, as it turned out, but we did not know it at the time. We proceeded outward, feeling rejected by Heart. Heart did not look out to see how we felt. He was feeling impatience with the mother for seeming to pressure him. He was sure he was right and not wrong to want to stay with the angels and the ancient ones. He gave love in my absence that had to be given, and we had an urgency to go forth that could not be held back any more. We had great speed of flight because the relative stillness we had experienced in holding ourselves back to be with the angels gave a great pressure to our light that now had to move to feel good. We were trailing blue and red fire as we got to the edge of the white light we already knew. We got quite a jolt and did not know what had happened to us. We felt that we had changed speed. Planets and stars flew by us now that had manifested earlier, but had not come to life yet. We had a desire to stop and look at all of them. As we turned to go back to them, we had a great surprise and a great joy too. We had not realized from within the Godhead how it might appear to look at it from without. To us it was a gorgeous sight to behold. It had many tiers of white light shimmering in subtle variations. It had the feelings of great castle in the sky with many turrets and towers, and many flags and streamers of light. It had everything that fantasies have ever given to the vision of castles and more. It changed form as we watched it, and like clouds shifting in the sky became cathedral-like. It took on many appearances as we watched, including an appearance somewhat like a great wedding cake. It was as though we had an ability to affect its form just by watching it. The mother had a desire to make love now, that she had been held back for quite some time. The mother stretched out as though she had lain down in comfortable relaxation in view of this giant presence of our Godhead. The Father of Manifestation and I gave her love from both ends at once. She had erotic fantasies about little beings that had a desire to come forth from within her now. They played pipes she had never seen before, and made sounds she had not heard before. Their rhythms were also new and had a great resounding depth to them. She had guilt that it was not right to have her attention on little beings running around inside of her while we were making love to her, but these beings were so captivating she could not help herself. The mother gave into an orgasm in her head and another in her groins, and spirits came pouring forth. I told her to have no guilt because the Father of Manifestation and I had put the seeds of her fantasies within her. She had great excitement then that we had acceptance instead of rejection for her feelings of playful response. The mother had desire to open and receive these spirits at once. She was so delighted with them that she gave each one a present. Each of them received a power of the will from the mother. Some were given the power to open space, some to hold space open. Some were given the power to move inner forces, and some to move outer forces. Some were even given the power to make light, and some the power to give light out. Some were given the power to envision within the light, and some to receive visions that were already there. Some could see the future, and some could remember the past. Some could make things appear, and some could make things disappear. Some were given the power to define form and amorphous things, and others were given the power to change form from one thing to another. Some had the power to bring together and heal, and some the power to disband and destroy. Some asked and were given the power to move the great cosmic forces. These two orders of spirits have a large presence of lost will on earth, and much of it is holding denied heart essence. Heart has healing to do with the spirits now because he was not able to give them full heart presence at their emergence. These spirits need to gain understanding now to help them resolve the many problems drawn to them by their guilt over having denied heart presence. The understanding needed is that these spirits had an original cause that gave Heart the feeling that he would not be accepted if he tried to go with us and give more of his presence to these manifestations. Heart was not wrong here because these spirits had been watching us, and they felt that the mother was not allowed her full expression, and that neither was the father, particularly the father of manifestation. These spirits saw Heart as always bringing a compromise that they did not want to make. These spirits had a feeling that manifesting as two orders of spirits, with the heart of the father in one order, and the heart of the mother in the other order, would enable them to fulfill their purpose without having to compromise in ways they did not want to. These spirits had great charm and appeal, and I named the order with the heart of the father, Seraphims, and the order with the mother heart, Cherubims. The Seraphims had spirit heart, and the Cherubims had will heart. The Seraphims were taller than the Cherubims, and where the Seraphims were slender, angular, and definite in form, the Cherubims were soft and rounded. The Seraphims were more cool and detached, and the Cherubims were warmer and more possessive. This was the first time we had seen what appeared to be a clear sexual distinction other than with ourselves. The Seraphims were red and blue with heads that gave off rays of silver and white. They had gold, but it was not prominent. Their gold shone mostly in their hearts where they received the mother and reflected her to herself. The Cherubims had red and orange, and their heads shone with encircling wreaths of golden halo. Their hearts were like shining stars of silver and white where they received the Father and reflected him to himself. The brightness and intensity of color was greater in these spirits than in the Godhead spirits, who had white glistening with pastel. The mother had an admiration for these spirits, and did not think that they had the willousness of the others. The spirits had the form and definition that was necessary now for the role they had to play. We wanted to give these spirits a warm welcome, and yet did not feel that we could have the Godhead all pour forth at once into this outer reality in order to greet them. These spirits had a highly developed sense of themselves already, and they informed us that they would rather have something ceremonial instead of just a party to mark their emergence. They already had ceremonial dances and patterns they could form that could make their sense of strength and power increase or decrease according to what they felt the situation called for. They had an ability to perform tricks that were both real and based on illusion. These spirits had a great beginning, and they have had a great future, but the road in the middle has become filled with the pain and suffering that guilt and misunderstanding has created in so many spirits who had great beginnings. The ceremony these spirits performed at their emergence let us know that it was now time to manifest many more spirits who had been waiting for the feelings that would make them come forth. We had understanding now that spirits were emerging in response to what was happening with us. If we were doing something that moved spirits enough to want to come forth, they did. The cherubims and the seraphims manifested many things to us that we had not fully felt until they emerged. These spirits had an ability to find minuteness of detail within me that I had not recognized yet. They gave me much information about essence that lay within me that was expressing desire to manifest now. After the ceremonial dances in which they showed me patterns I could instantly recognize in myself, these spirits gave us another performance that showed us more possibilities of what body could do. They had more defined bodies than the earlier spirits, and they could do many things with their body that we had not seen before. We watched their performances with great enjoyment, but feelings also arose in us. The mother feared that once again we had emerged spirits that had more power than we did. She experienced some jealousy and feared she had not managed to captivate us the way these spirits were doing. She found herself wishing that she kept her powers and manifested them herself, instead of giving them to others who are now charming us with them in ways in which she has always wanted to win our approval. She felt childish and guilty that she had these feelings, especially since I had told her long ago she had these powers, and she had given them out instead of using them herself. It's my own fault for being so fearful and held back, she told herself. The mother's guilt has not let her reclaim her powers for a long time. But after a long time of seeing spirits use powers that they have not understood, she has decided that she must reclaim many of these powers and forgive herself for having given them out in a hasty, naive, and guilty manner originally. There has been a corresponding loss of power among these spirits on earth. Deception has increased among these spirits as these powers decreased, because so many spirits still wanted to have these powers and began to pretend that they did. The mother had grave reservations about reclaiming powers because she foresaw what would happen if she did, but she was understanding now that giving these powers out then was necessary experience for all that were involved, but an experience that has reached its end. The Father of Manifestation saw that the mother was feeling upstaged and displaced by the seraphims and the cherubims. He shared her feelings. He had thought that form was his to manifest, and now he was feeling that he had not done so much with it as he should have. He had guilt that he had been inadequate as the Father of Manifestation. I had feelings of insecurity as God again also. We all wanted the spirits to manifest in ways that would make them happy, and we wanted them to have plenty of light and power. We could not, therefore, understand the persistent nagging feelings we had that our children were getting too much, and that we were diminishing too much in stature and power as the emergences progressed. We felt guilty that we even had these feelings, and because of the guilt, could not then really bring these feelings forth to look at them. We held back those feelings for so long that we had to learn to understand them in the form of the lost will reflections these feelings brought forward later. The formerly unseen role played by the denial these feelings received made the form in which they presented themselves to us almost unrecognizable and unintelligible. The reason for this is that denial had the effect of instructing these feelings to disguise themselves and to appear to be something other than what they were because they were not acceptable to us in their true and original form. At that time, we told ourselves that we had to be democratic about the emergent process and open room for others to become God in our place, or gods in their own right. We had fears and guilt we did not recognize then that did not allow us to know what was really happening in the manifesting of these spirits. We did not realize then that lost will of ours that should not have gone out was getting pushed out into the manifesting spirits. Because we were so afraid that they might not get the light they needed, we had, without realizing it, gone to the other extreme of giving them more light than they could handle. Because we had guilt telling us we wanted to be God whether we were rightfully God or not, and that it was not right to be attached to our position, we were unconsciously pushing out more light and power onto the manifested spirits than they needed or wanted to have, in an effort to make sure that we did not block anyone's chance to be all that they could be. We then had many spirits who had powers that did not know how to use properly, and many spirits that had reflections to give that we did not like having to see. These reflections were all variations on the theme of our lack of acceptance for ourselves. The reflections made it look as though our questions, fears, and doubts were proving themselves true. We felt unaccepted by many of the spirits we manifested because they manifested a lack of acceptance for us. It was our own lack of acceptance for ourselves that they were manifesting, but turned around as it were. It was not easy to recognize that it was only ourselves out there, giving us the reflection we needed to see it, how it felt to be an unaccepted part of us that really belonged within us. You need to understand that recognizing this reflection is not all there is to healing lost will. For a long time, all I did was look at it and learn. Later, I wondered why I had learned all I thought that I could learn, and yet the reflections were still there. I have since realized the will involved here must move before the reflection can change. At the time that the seraphims and the cherubims manifested, we did not realize that even though the Mother had given them power, they were going to need to receive us continually to be able to utilize these powers. Denials were not many in the beginning, but denials have increased tremendously over time. As denial has increased, the ability of spirits to manifest their powers has decreased. Not only have the seraphims and the cherubims lost power because we had to reclaim essence of ours that was not meant to be given to them, but they have also lost powers because they have guilt that they have never recognized. This unrecognized guilt has caused the seraphims and the cherubims to deny themselves in the belief that they were making love sacrifices in the name of love. These denials have caused them to stop vibrating in many of the ways that they need to vibrate it. They want to have their light they need to have the powers that are rightfully theirs. They have feared that they lost powers because they misused their powers. They saw their loss of powers as punishment from God for misuse of their powers. The seraphims and the cherubims have misunderstood at times, but they have never misused their powers. The seraphims and the cherubims are of loving intent, and loving intent cannot misuse power. Their misunderstandings were part of their own learning process. Punishment is not a necessary part of the learning process. Spirits of loving intent seek to learn because of the intrinsic value that understanding has for them. The seraphims and the cherubims judge themselves to have made mistakes. Self-forgiveness would be more in order here than self-punishment, because these spirits were already seeking the understandings that would allow them better application of their powers. Learning because punishment will be given out for not learning is not right use of will. Lack of self-acceptance for process opens spirits to the guilt that makes them believe they need punishment. Original guilt with the seraphims and the cherubims was that they felt they had denied heart by not manifesting the way we had done. Self-forgiveness, not for the way they manifested, but for their lack of acceptance for it, is in the order here. The seraphims and the cherubims were not wrong. They had understandings that we did not have. They realized that they needed to manifest in a way that would allow them to go through their own version of the process we had to go through in order to balance their spirit and will polarities enough to manifest heart. We had to realize through them that the manifested spirits needed their own experience to understand heart balance. Each order of spirits was allowing us to recognize something in ourselves. The seraphims and the cherubims have heart within them, and allowing themselves to reach the balance they need will allow their hearts to manifest the way they want it to happen. The seraphims and cherubims have pride that has not allowed them to receive these understandings from me. I would like them to allow me to help them now, because they have gotten themselves into a predicament on earth that does not feel good to them. They have not wanted to admit to this pride any more than they have wanted to admit to other feelings they have denied. Pride has been denied here, because the seraphims and the cherubims felt guilty that they had pride in the beginning, telling them they knew more than I did about manifesting. The Father of Manifestation feels particularly involved here, and has guilt himself that he needs to heal with these spirits. The seraphims and the cherubims had understanding that were right for themselves and for many others. These spirits had something to teach us, as did all the others. The seraphims and the cherubims were afraid to tell us how they thought spirits should be manifesting. They had seen what happened with the ancient ones in the beginning, and they were afraid of what might happen to them. They felt ashamed of themselves for thinking they could tell other spirits how to manifest when God had not told them how, because they felt they were not right here. These feelings were held back until the pressure from holding back pushed them quite suddenly to the other side, where pride empowered them with some anger, enabled them to come forth and show us what they wanted us to see. The fear did not express directly because of the unrecognized guilt involved. This guilt told them that without heart, they could not be sure they had the balance needed to know if they really were right. The desire to justify their position with me, and the undercurrent feeling of blame that claimed earlier problems, had been because I had not told the earlier manifestations enough about how to come forth, let me know that the guilt and shame had a presence that these spirits were denying. There was a feeling of anger beneath their presentation of understandings that gave me the realization that they had used anger to overcome their fear and thus deny it. Self-forgiveness is needed here also. Part of the process of understanding feelings is learning how expressions of some feelings and not others manifest the denial. All the opposition that spirits have encountered has been nothing more than a manifestation of their own denials. The mother felt the undercurrent of anger and blame in the seraphims and the cherubims, and it acted upon her fear and guilt. Because of the imbalance present in both sides here, neither side could recognize in themselves the presence of what they saw in the other. The imbalance in the seraphims and the cherubims caused them to ask for more powers than they could actually handle, and the imbalance in the mother caused her to give these powers to them. We had a growing feeling of intimidation because the manifested spirits were increasing in numbers, and together had increasing power, while we felt that we were diminishing, as the manifestations went on, more than we wanted to. Heart kept telling us everything was all right because love would not allow anything to get mistreated, including us. We had faith in love, and were not sure why we had fear around Heart's resonance. Later we realized it was because love was not manifest in the places where we did not accept ourselves. The reflection manifesting in the creation gave us an exact picture of how we felt about ourselves. The form the reflection took was determined by the judgments, by the emotions holding the judgments in place, and by how much lack of love the judgments against ourselves contained. Hatred is the most extreme reflection of lack of love. Guilt and hatred together have punished many people so severely that the terrible deaths have been brought to them, and yet these people have wondered why. Because they have not felt within themselves the guilt and hatred that has drawn these deaths to them. In many instances, these people have appeared to be innocent victims, and yet all of these people have lost will, which is holding the guilt and self-hatred that has drawn these terrible deaths. In the beginning of creation, we did not know why guilt was present with us most of the time. Self-hatred grew because of guilt. For a long time, I thought I had to have guilt to tell me when I had done something wrong, in which case guilt was God instead of me. I had objection to this because it was not a loving feeling that I got from guilt. I have understood guilt now and have found that it is simply a presence. Guilt does not have consciousness, although in the past it had me confused into thinking that it was smarter than I was. I have since realized that guilt has no power to move without essence being given to it. The guilt had my own consciousness that was in opposition to myself. Any time any part of me was in opposition to the rest of me, that part of me was fed to guilt because I was denying the consciousness within me that opposed my main intent. Guilt held me back because it was empowered by this denied essence. Guilt opposes movement of any kind because guilt itself does not move. Because I had denied the consciousness that opposed me within myself, that consciousness then manifested outwardly in a state of denial. The opposition did not gain acceptance within me, and so love was not present for it. Instead of love, it got denial. The denial then gave the opposition an unloving twist that I cannot really describe fully in any simple terms. You are going to need to watch it happen as the story unfolds if you want to fully understand what I mean. You also need to understand that not all lost will is as twisted as what I am describing now. Some lost will is only warped by the judgment it holds. Lost will tries to hide how it really feels behind forms that look acceptable. The more acceptable, the better, in fact, because lost will has already been told that its real form is not acceptable. This is why real healing for lost will often at first look like it is getting worse instead of better. When lost will begins to move, its real state begins to be seen. Guilt, hatred, and death have manifested every perverse form in a lost will, and they also have been empowered by essence that is holding misunderstanding. Even though we did not know, and the spirits who followed me did not know, we were empowering guilt, hatred, and death. Even though in our conscious awareness it was the last thing that we wanted to be doing, we have been empowering lost will with the denials we gave ourselves in the name of love. Further understandings on lost will must accompany the story so that you can see how these misunderstandings have been acted out on earth. The teachings I am giving around the emergence of the different orders of spirits have relevance for more than just that order. You will have something to learn from everything I am telling you. Going back to the emergence of the seraphims and the cherubims now, you need to understand that it is not wrong if you are having feelings of having emerged with more light and power than you could handle, and that you lost it all along the way. It is not wrong to realize that you have also lost a substantial amount of power and light that actually is yours, because you could not tell the difference between what was really yours and what was not. Definition was in very early stages when the spirits first emerged. Also, looking at it in advance of the experience, manifested existence looked to the spirit polarity like it was going to be simpler than it turned out to be. The will foresaw this, but was not given the opportunity to let us know, because we were too busy trying to deny the fear that maybe we could not manifest at all. Therefore, in attempting to align yourselves, you are going to find that you must regain will presence, not only to hold yourself together, but to be able to feel what is you and what is not. You have essence of yours in other people, and other people have essence of theirs in you. Some of this essence has been lost in this manner since the days when spirit light bodies were merging with one another before they had gotten to know themselves. There is also essence that has not revealed its true presence because it has been pressured to act according to the expectation of overpowering essence around it. If you have something in you that feels like it will not align with you, you must free it by giving movement to all the will essence that is holding in its place. If you move your will thoroughly in this area, you will find that either the essence does align with you and teach you in the process, or it will leave you and go to its right place somewhere else. I'm going to point out the presence of guilt and lost will in the story so that you can look and see how the patterns affect your life. If you get sick of hearing me sound like a god that is always fear-ridden and guilty, then you are feeling the feelings that participated in creating the original denial of these feelings. Their denial has created a far greater problem than just feeling them ever could have. There is still time to heal this now, although guilt has stilled the movement of so much light that there is real danger of the light falling inescapably into its grasp. Once consciousness has been lost by lack of movement, it is not easy to regain it. In the beginning, I underestimated what was involved in the recovery of lost essence. Now I would like to say that every order of spirit has emerged with guilt that was not recognized at the time, and has lived with this guilt ever since. To make matters even more complex, misunderstandings have often said that guilt was right and God was wrong, and thus my identity and guilt's presence have become mixed together. Sacrifice is one good example of guilt's punishment being mistaken for God. I want to bring guilt forward as I became aware of it as much as I can, but I'm also giving some understandings ahead of their chronological order, because the misunderstanding in these areas are so monumental that some of them need immediate release, so that you can take in the story without reacting the way you did the first time, which was to turn away when you couldn't handle any more and deny what troubled you. Denial was the path taken then because evolution of emotions was not understood. This time, evolution of the will and the accompanying increase in light is going to be necessary. If these understandings are giving you trouble or making you feel like you don't want to face them, move emotion and come back to this later. Turning away has been accompanied by the forgetting that there even was a turning away. But turning away has left everyone with incomplete and fragmented images of me, which are mixed together with guilt and misunderstanding. The will has been so pressured to hold all of this that it is terrified they cannot recognize God, or God does not exist, or God is something so terrible that hiding from him is the best bet. Guilt over hiding makes many go to church and pretend to worship a God they do not in their true feelings believe that they even like because of the images being presented by religion. I have cautioned against worshiping false images, and this warning has not yet been understood. I have sent my heart in the form of Jesus, and this teaching has not yet been fully understood. Try to open this time by getting your emotions moving. You can recover lost consciousness if you first get movement in the consciousness that you still have. Now, returning to the seraphims and the cherubims, we had guilt in these orders of spirit that was not recognized at the time. We were unconsciously looking to see if we should be God or not, and our doubts and fears were feeding guilt's ability to show us spirits that made it appear that we should abdicate in their favor. The ancient ones first, and then Lucifer. Now we had a number of spirits among the seraphims and cherubims that gave us the feeling that they were more powerful than we were. They were not threatening to us overtly, because we had love for one another. But subtly they were trying to prove something to us. They gave us a feeling that we worked for them. They wanted us to be the light generators for them, so that they could use the powers that they had been given. We had an aversion to this because we didn't like the feeling of constantly having to generate more light to maintain the spirits. At that time it appeared to us as though the emergent spirits were increasing in definition and manifested powers as we progressed, and we did not know if our path of creation was meant to lead us to a more highly evolved God than we were or not. Of course, our path was leading us to our own self-realization, but we did not know that then. We had gotten so caught up in the process of creating and allowing spirits to manifest that we had temporarily lost the overview that heart and eye had in the beginning. We had gotten out of balance here. Instead of seeing the oneness of everything, I had gotten caught up in the differentiation between us all. Lost will has not yet found the way that oneness and differentiation fit together. Lost will believes that differences divide people, and does not like to notice, and sometimes does not want to allow differences unless there is a desire to feel separate from the ones who are different. We shared what we could with the seraphims and cherubims at the time of their emergence, but we could not lay everything to rest then. As with the others, we had a growing feeling that they needed to experience on their own, that we needed to go forth and manifest more spirits. There was some guilt about leaving once again, but we could not hold ourselves back any more. The emergence of the spirit polarity of the rainbow spirits. The father of manifestation was already dragging the mother away because he felt that he could not have the orgasm he wanted in the presence of these spirits. I threw my light in with them just in time to have a great shimmering orgasm of purple light surrounded by halos of white. This orgasm had a delicate beginning, but the more we opened into it, the greater it felt. When we had exhausted ourselves with love-making and lay back and rest, we found ourselves surrounded by spirits shining in every hue of purple known to man. They grouped themselves like a flower whose petals grew deeper in hue as they moved inward. These spirits had a delicate, shimmering receptivity to us, and the movement within their emergent pattern gave off an odor not unlike the lotus flower associated with this chakra. I realized now that I had a body forming. We had a feeling of welcome toward these spirits, and we did not feel threatened. These spirits had inspirations from the Word of God as their power. They spoke to us as though we were all one head in many words that we had not heard before, and yet we could understand them. They had inspiration to give in the form of stories to tell, and the response we had was music to accompany them. Some of the earlier manifested angels began to appear and to join in with us. These purple spirits were a chorus within their flower that began to give out stories and song. Some seraphims and cherubims appeared now, and they began to dance to the stories. Second-order angels provided costumes, and first-order the visionary effects. The third order of angels, the listening order, had the role of an audience now, listening for the inner and outer alignment that was needed. When fourth-order angels arrived, they wondered what their contribution would be. It seemed to them that their arrival had no contribution to offer. They did not realize that their presence was their contribution. They gave a depth to the emotional quality of events just by being present. The fourth order has long felt guilty about the issue of feeling they had no contribution to offer, and they need to release this guilt now. The angels had apparently had such a good time celebrating their emergence that they wanted to have opportunities for more celebrations. Their combined desire to go forth and to also remain at home in the Godhead gave a nice flow to the light, as their coming and going created streams of light back and forth between the Godhead and the outer areas we were opening now. We all shared a guilt in the Godhead that also needed to be released now. We feared we were shortchanging the emerging rainbow spirits, as these order of spirits came to be called, by not giving them the full Godhead presence at once. As it turned out, coming and going at will was the perfect arrangement, as it gave the Godhead spirit opportunity to experience outer manifested realities as much as was right for them, and brought the light of the Godhead forth to the rainbow spirits in the amount that was right for them. The guilt that has been present in this area has created a long-standing imbalance that has not been healed yet. These new spirits could see that the angels had a home, and they wondered if they also had one. We had opened planets to manifest a life-giving home for all the spirits as they emerged. But I have omitted this information because of the length of the material, and because it is not the information you really need right now. I am mentioning the question of home in relationship to these spirits because the rainbow spirits have a karmic problem around the question of where their home is. These spirits were envious of the Godhead and insisted that they belong there. Even though we had opened planets for all the spirits, and these planets had great beauty in our eyes, we were manifesting a reflection of our own guilt here, that maybe we had selfishly created the best place for ourselves. We feared that we loved our own home the most since we felt the most comfortable when we were there. Not that the other planets did not interest us, they did, but we found ourselves wanting to return home often to get the intensity of light that we needed. We have since found that every kind of spirit receives the light best suited to nurture his or her needs. To be at peace with his understanding means being at peace with the self. And we were manifesting the same lack of self-acceptance among the manifested spirits that we had for ourselves. We had opened what we thought were beautiful planets for the purple spirits and for the colors to follow, but the rainbow spirits did not go to live on these planets for a long time. Instead, these spirits migrated all over the universe, insisting that their true home was not where I said it was. They developed powers of astral travel as well as travel in spaceships. Long ago, the rainbow spirits came to Earth, and when they moved on, they left parts of themselves behind that no longer had the vibratory power to go with them. The rainbow spirits that left Earth so long went to look at the other planets. We had made for them and found that they felt at home there after all. These spirits now understand that they have to heal their lost will that was left on Earth, and they have lately been coming close to Earth, trying to contact the rainbow spirits that were left here so long ago. These spirits have a fear of landing on Earth and making their presence known, not only because of the kind of civilization that exists on Earth now, but also because the magnetic density of Earth has increased since they were last here. They were afraid that they will get caught on Earth in the same way that their lost will got caught here. The rainbow spirits that are on earth need to allow themselves to have contact with the rainbow spirits who have been traveled to their homeland, because these spirits have healing in mind. Opening to this healing among the rainbow spirits means that the old charge around being left on earth needs to move. Long ago, the spirits who left were judgmental toward the ones that got caught here, and there needs to be a healing of this judgment pattern now. The emotions involved here do not look pretty right now because they have been denied for so long. Having been held back for so long, the anger, fear, and grief involved is very murky looking. This murkiness is not allowing the rainbow spirits that are still on earth to vibrate their colors very brightly anymore. The rainbow spirits that are still on earth still do not know where their home is, and they never feel that they are being given clear claim to their right home, even if it is to be a spot on earth. They have a problem even finding a country that feels like home to them. They have spread themselves all over the earth and yet cluster together with one another wherever they go. Wherever you find one rainbow spirit, you are to find others. They have a real group orientation, and if they find the group they need, they can heal in groups. Home for the rainbow spirits is not on earth, and they need to find their true home, because having the right home is really important to them. Healing their original cause will enable them to find their true home and finally accept it after all this time. The rainbow spirits also need to abandon the idea that they are going to have to die a horrible death to get there. They do not have to die to go if they heal themselves first. The rainbow spirits have appeared on earth in many forms. They have had nearly as much trouble finding forms that feel right to them as they have had finding a home. The rainbow spirits have manifested patterns on earth of gypsy, circus, carnival, traveling minstrel, and magic shows. Most of the patterns that are not mainstream are involved here. Right now, I want to go on to the emergence of the other colors. We had very rapid emergence here and feared that this was not right. Of course, we found out later that it was. We had a lot of fear among emerging spirits because we had love in our hearts that wanted to give these spirits a good life and manifest them in ways that would allow them to have a good start in life. We had not done this before, and like so many parents today, feared that our own lack of experience might overlook something the spirits needed. We had our own needs to meet also, or we would not be good parents. We wanted and intended to be. We had trouble finding the balance here between our own needs and the needs of our children. We have not found it yet, but I am confident it can be found if lost will is healed. I also want to say here that it is not wrong to have sex involved. I had sex long before I had children. It was orgasm that emerged all of the manifested spirits and gave them the light they needed. And yet all of the manifested spirits have had trouble accepting spirituality as part of God. As a result of this, the full presence of light and love has been held apart from every single sexual experience that has yet been had on earth, whether the participants are aware of this or not. Sexual guilt is immense on earth. Having guilt mixed with light and love has been the experience needed, but is not a very bright beginning for spirits trying to manifest on earth. Guilt fragments are what most people get, therefore, when they have children instead of the spirits they think they are getting. These children then usually turn around and mirror their parents' guilt to them. These children are healing presence if you learn to understand and accept the reflection. Most parents have given in to the guilt their children represent in their lives. Rather than feeling the real feelings they have for their children, parents have been, in most instances, preferring to pretend and even insist that they love their children whether they actually do or not. Most parents who do not really love their children do not even allow themselves to touch these feelings for fear of what it will mean. Often these children receive even more of what society accepts as forms of parental love than do many children whose parents have more real feelings for their children. Most of the cases of child neglect and abuse are the actions of the lost will of parents who do not really love their children, but heavily deny their feelings in favor of the pretense of love. I am not suggesting that parents who suspect that they do not love their own children should start neglecting and abusing them so that they don't send this essence out into lost will. I am saying that when lost will receives denied feelings, these feelings have been judged unacceptable and have a twist of unlovingness in them. Accepting your feelings and working with them, while holding your light and love present for your own true feeling, is going to change the way these feelings are going to be expressed from destructive to healing expressions. If you get triggered by reports of child abuse and neglect, you have lost will doing it. You are going to need to accept the guilt and shame you feel about letting yourself realize this also, and to let yourself feel the rage that you feel toward your own children. If you have not had children, you need to find out why you have not had children. Deeply buried may be fears that you will not want to do some of the same things that trigger you when you hear of others doing these things. The more you want to go out and stop them, the more you need to heal your own lost will within yourself. You all had some form of sex involved in your conception, if not orgasm anymore. Your parents all had sex before you were born, and most of them hid sex from you afterwards. If your parents had sex during pregnancy, you were more intimately involved than most parents have wanted to acknowledge. Once you became a conscious presence in their lives, your parents had their fears and guilt activated about the place of sex in family life. Even parents who claim that they have not allowed their children to interfere with their sex life have imbalances here that they are not aware of if they are making this claim. There is a lot of healing and understanding that needs to take place in this area on earth before sex can really take its right place. Sex has been taking place in the presence of guilt and denial for so long on earth that no one knows what life without denial is like, let alone sex without denial. The reasons that sex has been so laden with guilt and denial have been deeply buried in original cause, and I'm going to bring this information forward a little at a time. If it triggers you that I had sex in the ways I am describing now, allow your feelings to move on this. If you have feelings of arousal, allow these feelings also. The separation of God and sex has created such a serious diminishment of the light that it must be healed now. You all had interest in my sex life, whether you admitted this openly or not. It was unnerving to us to try to have sex in the middle of all the manifested spirits who wanted to hang around and get off on it with us. Spirits who had acceptance and wanted to receive the light gave us a feeling that it might be possible to allow it, but the feelings we got from many were quite disquieting. Lost will has the voyeurism that we feared was happening then. Knowing that other spirits were around when we had sex held us back from the full expansion of our light, because we felt less comfortable and more inhibited than we were alone. The disquieting spirits were reflections of our own uncertainty, fear, doubt, guilt, and shame standing over us, but we did not know it then. Then we felt as though many of the manifested spirits couldn't accept what their parents were doing. We decided it would be best not to have sex in front of the children anymore if we could help it. Going off into the darkness and having sex away from the spirits we had already manifested was the right thing to do at that time, because we had to open more space into which more spirits could manifest. We had feelings that were not at peace with us, though, and these feelings had been reenacted by lost will ever since. The feelings that were misunderstood then have to be understood now to bring the healing that sex needs. I am going to go into sex a lot more as the story goes on. For now, you need to know that the orgasm that moves you the most is the one that called you forth into emergence. If you have feelings about more than one of them, you need to feel your feelings more, and you will discover which orgasm called you forth, and also what called you into consciousness of yourself within me. You may have displaced essence that doesn't allow you to know right away, but you will understand more as time goes on. Knowing yourself here is important so that you can accept your origins in me. Sexual denial has made it impossible for most parents to reenact the orgasm they enjoy most, and so remembering your own conception in this life may only be able to give you a picture of the denials that you have become involved with on your path. You have to understand how denial creates reversals in your life to know what happens when you have sex in the presence of denial. The rainbow spirits are now going to emerge in a rapid progression. There would have been an imbalance in the light that would have destabilized the emergence of all the orders of rainbow spirits if we had tarried long at any particular emergence, but we did not know this at the time. Then we had guilt that we had shortchanged the rainbow spirits by not giving them much attention at the moment of their emergence. The celebrations they had upon emerging were conducted by the Godhead spirits, and we were not present until later. We could not quiet or hold back our desire for orgasm until we had reached the end of the rainbow, and yet we had guilt telling us that we were becoming much too involved with one another and getting far too into sex to care about anyone else or to be responsible toward the children we were manifesting. Guilt said that we were not taking proper care of these spirits or giving them all that they needed. Look, guilt said, you have whole orders of spirits floating around without even having a proper home. Still, we could not stop the orgasms. As soon as one order emerged, the father of manifestation was grabbing the mother and making love to her again. Before I felt that I had given a new order enough light, I would have another order of spirits needing light. I was greatly annoyed with the father of manifestation for not being able to hold back his sexual drive. I also feared that he was exhausting the mother, who seemed unable to even catch her breath between orgasms. I was filling her and the entire area around us with as much light as I felt I possibly could, and still I felt that I was unable to provide enough light. I had fear that I was less potent and powerful than the Father of Manifestation. It looked like he was growing larger all the time, while I felt that I was growing smaller. I felt like I was being drawn into form more than I really wanted to be. I had a feeling like a naked man putting his hand over his penis because he feels small and inadequate compared to the other men standing near him. I had a feeling that my light was not enough now. The Father of Manifestation seemed to be able to fill the mother all by himself and give her forms I had not been able to give her. She was changing forms almost as quickly as she took them on. Every form the Father of Manifestation gave her had great beauty in my eyes, and she was having orgasms in every form. I was jealous of his powers. The Father of Manifestation seemed to be on the mother constantly now, holding her very tightly, breathing on her with a breath of flames and stars all at once. They had an atmosphere around them now that was not just open space anymore. It had moisture and light, aroma and movement. It had a heady feeling just to breathe it. There was as much light present as I could give it, but I had fear because I saw a darkness present also. Part of this darkness was being given presence by the feeling that needed to be healed now, but part of it was that these spirits needed a more dense form of light to thrive, and it did not appear to be as bright to me as my light in the Godhead. At the time of their emergence, I did not know that these spirits were suited to the light that they were receiving. Then I had a desperate feeling of not being able to cope and of running to try to catch up with the Mother and the Father Manifestation. The Mother was running slightly out ahead, and I could not tell if she was running from the intensity of both of us, or if the two of them were running for me. There was little time to understand it, as the Father of Manifestation would overtake the Mother very quickly, and pull her down beneath him again and again. I felt somewhat shut out, and I could not see the ways in which he was giving her repeated orgasms. I knew that they were very intense, and the intensity stirred fear in me, which was accompanied by a riot of inner pictures. I could not even tell if the Mother and the Father of Manifestation were struggling and fighting with each other or making love. They were breathing and vibrating intensely, and at times even sounded desperate and out of breath. They were crying out, and many other sounds were coming out of them also. I heard tinkling bells, chimes, roars, grunts, moans, gasps, rumbles, deep drum-like beats, waves crashing on the shores, volcanoes erupting, birds crying, winds rushing. There was popping and crackling. There were crackles, booms, and explosions during which the atmosphere around them filled with colored light. Every color and combination of colors that I thought imaginable were exploding around us like a riot of expensive fireworks booming in the night. There were also soft places in the light that opened around us, like the softness of flower profusions opening to sunlight. There was rain, lightning, and falling water. There was fire, storms, and finally, the peace of a clear and starry night. Spirit and form go into conflict and appeal to heart for balance. I had felt left behind, in the background, unappreciated, unnoticed, unwanted, and unloved, and yet I could not hold back my desire to go with them. I had a compulsion to be with them no matter what other feelings I was having. At first I thought that I should have left them alone if they did not want to include me, but I have since realized that I gave the rainbow spirits the right amount of light and presence. There is a deep guilt in these orders, though, that they desire intensity in their sexual experiences that God cannot really be fully present to witness, because he would not have acceptance for it. When I saw the way the Mother was responding to the Father of Manifestation, I feared that she loved him more than she loved me, and he was more fulfilling to her than I was, that he gave her more intense orgasms than I could, and that she loved form more than she loved spirit. These feelings all have presence in the denials and guilts of these orders of spirits. Everything that was present in us, recognized and unrecognized at the time of emergence, has presence in the conscious and subconscious awareness of the spirits who manifested there, or who even came into conscious awareness of themselves within us at that time. The Father of Manifestation was laying back now, and the Mother with him. They had guilt when they saw how I felt, and they wished that they had included me more. A lot of thoughts and feelings that were present here were taken and held in judgment by the spirits involved. The lost will in these orders has since lost almost all of its original intensity of color, because it has been holding guilt that has made it nearly impossible to vibrate with the intensity of its emergence. The lost will of the rainbow spirits on earth now looks more like a bad bruise than the intense beauty of its original colors. I gave a lecture to the Mother and the Father of Manifestation as they were lying there that contained many of the judgments that were taken in. Everything went by so fast that, although I saw it, I had no time to assimilate it, let alone get to know it, enjoy it, spend time with it, welcome it, parent it, or check to see if it had manifested in the manner that would allow it to remain manifest. I felt overwhelmed, abandoned, denied, and betrayed by willful emotions and bodily passions that showed no concern for spirit. You didn't care about me. You only cared about satisfying yourselves, and you are still not satisfied. Much of that was left unspoken was present as feelings and internal pictures. The mother felt very guilty here because she was already tingling again with the desire for more orgasms. The father of manifestation felt guilty because he wanted to respond to the mother. He judged himself to be too involved in sexual drive and gratification. The father of manifestation tried to let his guilt and his concern for and fear of me hold him back. He blamed himself, and he blamed the mother for arousing him to such excess. The mother blamed herself, and part of her blamed the father of manifestation. They were trying to listen to me, but as I felt them, it seemed to me that they were really only lusting after one another. I was disgusted and frightened. I felt enraged and ignored. I felt impotent. I feared I could not make them change. All of this and present most of the time when people on earth attend religious services. I held back most of what I was giving them in favor of the image I held of myself as God at the time, but it was all taken in its denied state by the spirits who were present then, and has affected them ever since. I wanted to tell the father of manifestation and the mother how much I hated them for making me feel so left out and powerless, but instead I said, "You don't care about the spirits you have so wantonly manifested. You don't care what sort of havoc your lust may have wreaked. You let your passion take over, and in it you disregard the limits and the needs of others. You have indulged in an orgy of extremes that have spewed forth like a riotous explosion of beautiful colors, vibrating in sounds and sensations and aromas I could not resist." The mother finished my sentence with a surprisingly lack of sheepishness, considering the power I thought I had in the speech I had just delivered. "Look," the mother said. I looked and saw nothing really, because I was flooded with a sickening feeling of fearing that as I looked away, the mother was beginning again to caress the father of manifestation. She was complimenting him, reassuring him, murmuring to him, seducing him again. "Seductress," I thought. "Just a minute," I said, turning back to them. "No more until we go back and see how it is." The father of manifestation was rubbing the mother's belly and touching her breasts. Light, milky ethers began to stream forth from her breasts, flowing to all of the spirits that had come forth, falling gently upon them like a warm shower, fulfilling nourishment. I felt ashamed that I had gotten so angry at them. "We can feel from here that they are all right," the mother said. "They have forms we've never seen before," I said. I had the father of manifestation in mind now. "You can't make love to the mother now," I told him. "We need to check these manifestations and make sure they're all right." "What if he just wants to comfort and soothe me after all the spirits I've emerged?" the mother said to me. Again I felt ashamed. I also did not trust them, because I could feel that their real motivation was unsatisfied passion that was growing within them. "You know," the mother resumed, "you are sounding as worried as I was earlier. You sound just like me." How annoying was what she also felt, but did not say, because she was afraid of treating me in ways she had not wanted to be treated. She also feared that I was right about her, and that she had allowed her passions to make her forget her cares for the things we were manifesting. "Now I'm being as selfish as I thought they were being earlier," she told herself. God is right. She allowed her guilt and fear to push down her sexual fires. The father of manifestation did not like the way I was making him feel, and he and I got into a fight right then. This isn't how I had envisioned it. I was yelling as I pounded on his head as the way of saying that he was not letting spirit in. "You're supposed to let me in, include me. But no, instead you want the mother all to yourself, and as a result you have bungled everything. There's no order to this, only chaos." Body blamed heart then, saying he should have come along to hold the balance. "Without his balance, it's no wonder things went wrong," he said. "Boys, boys," I heard a voice saying from somewhere. I looked at the mother, expecting that she had said this, but she was standing there smiling as if nothing was wrong. I thought she was very strangely calm for someone who was usually so frightened and full of complaints. Look for yourself," she insisted. "The beauty is so great that I am sure it is not wrong. There is so much beautiful colored light that I'm sure that what we've done has to be right." We looked, and there was a beautiful trail of colored light, a huge rainbow glistening and shining in the night, a rainbow pathway that led to our door. At the top of the rainbow our home was shining in a glorious beauty even greater than what I remember seeing before. a great jewel crown of shimmering white light approachable across a carpet of rainbow light, shimmering in the backdrop of the starry night. I heard music whose form I could not understand until I realized that each color had a note. The flow of color was making chords that resonated with the universe. There was harmony, there was song, there was beauty. We calmed down and allowed ourselves to enjoy it. We soon became flooded with a feeling that everything was all right, and that we couldn't have asked for anything more. We gazed at the beauty of the sight that lay before us for as long as we could. There was joy in our hearts now, and a feeling of thanks and praise. As we looked, we could see the Godhead Spirit streaming back and forth, ministering to the rainbow spirits, and we felt that they were giving these new spirits what they needed. The angels were having fun going back and forth, and they looked like glistening drops of sunlit rain of perhaps flower fairies as they had been pictured on earth. In looking closer to watch the angels, I saw that the forms of the rainbow spirits were not unfamiliar to me after all. I had seen them within me. I had seen them in the Mother, and I had seen them in the visionary displays the angels had given. What gave me such a startle in recognizing them now was the increase in vividness that they had acquired. I had experienced my early realities as seeming to be vivid and aligned at the time, but they seemed more like dreams compared to the vividness that now held my gaze. I had a moment of guilt for how I had carried on with the Mother or the Father of Manifestation. With a hat-in-hand manner, I apologized to them. I told them I had a feeling they were God now, and I was just going along for the ride. They couldn't stand my false humility, and they had a great desire to kick me in the head then, but they denied those feelings in favor of their feeling for how insecure I felt. Earlier I had shown them my anger, but not my fear. Instead of feeling so defensive and frightened that they had done wrong themselves, they began to have more sympathy for my point of view. They let me know then that they had a feeling of being overwhelmed by my light which had kept them running ahead in order not to be engulfed by it. This had been their experience at the same time that I was feeling I couldn't keep up with them and didn't have enough light for them. Something must have come over us, the Mother tried to say as a way of smoothing things out between us. I had to run from both of you, she said then. I was having orgasms, but I was terrified that as much as I have wanted both of you were too much for me. Every time I got far enough ahead to feel that I wasn't being overwhelmed, Body would catch me and hold me until I was overwhelmed with light again. I was being overwhelmed into orgasm. I could hardly catch my breath. Now the Father of Manifestation felt hurt, frightened, angry, and betrayed. He had thought the Mother was enjoying the intensity he had given her. He had even thought that she was leading him on. Now he feared that either he could not trust himself to know, or he could not trust her to let him know. He also feared that if her feeling was that the two of us were too much for her, this statement might mean that she intended to leave him out and choose to go back to spirit. I had the fear that she had chosen him and not me. None of us wanted to express all we felt right then because we all had too much fear of what the outcome might be. We had fears running rampant in our minds, and there was jealousy between the Father of Manifestation and myself. We both wanted the Mother, but we did not think we should both be trying to have her at once. At the same time, neither of us wanted to be left out of anything that had happened so far. The Father of Manifestation feared that the Mother was using him to make me jealous, and I feared that her desire for me was not real any more, but that she feared me enough to say that it was. We were all afraid of being hurt and of hurting one another, and this interfered with our ability to be honest here. The Mother feared that she had no right to try to hold on to both of us. Her desire for both of us began to look to her as though she just wanted to keep us both, so she could have whichever one best suited her needs at any given time. She feared that she was self-centered, not thinking of us. We felt her then, and feared that she was not wrong. Suddenly, Body and I both felt as though we were being used by the Mother. We feared that she actually had set it up both of us, and then when she found out that she couldn't handle it, wanted to play us off against one another, and have only one of us left. I had a moment here of feeling myself to be one with Body against the Mother. I felt this oneness with Body so intensely that I lost track for a brief time of any separation between her and I. I actually did not know for a time who had said and felt what, and it did not seem to matter because we had agreement between us. We both feared that the Mother could be dividing us and using us against one another wrongly. We were both very angry at her for this and even hated her at the moment. As soon as we realized what our thinking was here and that we had become one, we startled ourselves out of it. The feelings we had that were not aligned with the suspicious view of the Mother did not allow us to remain there for long. We also knew that she was not unloving, that she was trying to do her best given the situation. We realized that we were feeling more of the pressure that we had felt from the beginning because we did not understand why we had what appeared to be 3 men and only 1 woman. We all began to wish Hart would come to us and help us balance ourselves again, so we could feel some understanding and acceptance of our situation. Hart did appear then and let us know that he had love for us. He asked us to look at what we had manifested and see if that was reflecting our own imbalances. We did look then, and we were horrified to see that the colors were already losing some of their brilliance, and the music, some of its harmony. Hart asked us to accept ourselves here so that the rainbow spirits could accept themselves. Hart gave us a lecture then. He said that as the parents of creation, we ought to be able to act more mature. Guilt was actually giving us a speech, but none of us knew that Hart had guilt. Hart's guilt always sounded so balanced and right to us that it was the last guilt to get recognized by me. Now I want to help you to recognize it. When guilt affects the heart, it makes love appear to be something higher than what you have been able to attain, receive, or give out. Hart has mixed love and guilt together. Here is what Hart had to say to us then. The angels have begged me to come to you and ask you not to scare those new spirits before they even have a chance to know what it is like to be manifested. The angels are afraid that you are going to frighten the rainbow spirits into shrinking back inside and make them too afraid to come out again. The angels have been trying to celebrate the rainbow spirits' emergence with them, but they have not opened out of their emergent pattern yet. They have remained clumped together right where they emerged. The angels feel that the rainbow spirits do not have the security they need to move out into manifested life, because they do not know if they are accepted, and they do not know yet where their homes are. You are fighting instead of giving them the parental light and love that they need. I think you need to give them acceptance now. If you don't like what you have done, you need to set about improving it instead of fighting about why it happened, how it happened, and whose fault it is. The rainbow spirits cannot just go wandering off into space as if nothing to offer them. You need to show them where their homes are. They want to come into the Godhead, and I don't feel like it is their right place. I think they want to be there because they are afraid. They are afraid they have not manifested right, and that there is no right place for them. You have to give them the understanding they need now. Hart was very gentle with the next part, but he let us know that the Godhead was all he could handle alone, and that not all was going well there either. He said that the angels were also afraid, and they did not want to show it to the manifested spirits, but they had shown their fear to him. Hart said nothing wrong. It was not even been wrong to have had guilt and love mixed together for so long. All of his statements were observations he had made. The guilt was coming through as a feeling tone that was asking us to give up what we were doing in favor of the needs of others. Guilt was saying that we should do this because it was wrong to be hurting others with what we were doing. Guilt even implied that our negligence was making the rainbow spirit needs greater than they would if we just attended to what love should be doing. I feared that Hart was speaking the truth, but I felt reluctant to accept it. I decided that I have to see for myself. I began to feel quite urgent about returning to take a look. Hart wanted us to attend to the manifested spirits on our way back to the Godhead, but I felt a need to go home first and then visit the rainbow spirits. The mother felt my desire to go, and did not want to be left out in space without me. I felt annoyed with her because she and Hart both seemed to be trying to hold me back from what I wanted to do. She wanted to make love. Hart wanted me to visit the rainbow spirits, and I wanted to go home. The Father of Manifestation was now feeling real fear that he had done wrong to manifest everything so quickly. His guilt was freezing his fear in place, so that he could not move or speak. He had enjoyed what he had done, and he feared the possibility that he was wrong so much that he did not want to find out if he was wrong or not. He had also been holding his fear that he could not have the mother any more. He wanted to ask Hart, and I had to help him, but he could not speak. I wanted everyone to move. We all had more feelings toward one another that needed to move, but we all felt it was not right to go into them any more. I wanted to say something to the Father of Manifestation, just as he did to me, but we denied the great charge of feeling we had in favor of what we thought was a loving approach the Hart had described. Instead of saying anything, I turned to go. The mother then was seized by a terrible fear that I intended to leave her. She also had feelings pouring through her that were not allowing her to know whether I wanted her to come along with me or not. She had a desire to reach for me, but did not because she wanted me to reach for her instead. I didn't want to play games at all. I wanted to get on with what I felt I had to do. "Please," the mother said then, "can't we give it another try? Can't we try to love one another instead of fighting?" Guilt and fear were making her feel unable to risk any more unpleasantness between us. She held on to us both, and we wouldn't let us go until she felt acceptance between us again. We regained our acceptance by forgiving one another. Forgiveness was born then, and it had a wonderful feeling of release to it. We both gave the mother a hug and let her know that we agreed that it was important to find love between us. We gave love the most important focus then and decided not to focus on anything that didn't seem loving to us. Lost Will got all the feelings we denied then and needs to heal them now. I turned to go then, feeling I was allowing the others a choice of coming with me or not. The mother grabbed me and held me back until the father of manifestation felt included also. He still felt unsure of himself and did not know what I had in mind. He had ways in which he wanted to express, but he was not sure if I had acceptance for his forms or not. He gave me a hard look which let me know that he did not think it was right to leave him out, but he was not going to pressure me to include him if I did not want to.